In the quiet night of Seoul Grace Hospital, 2 women went into labor at the same time. They were born under the same stars, in the same hospital, at the same time. But one would grow in light, and the other in the shadows of a lie. Camera pans to the door of Seoul Grace Hospital, 1998. 2 women are wheeled into the delivery room. One, Moran, a wealthy heiress married to a successful businessman, elegant, in a designer nightgown, clutching her husband's hand. The other, Han So-hee, a poor factory worker struggling to survive, exhausted, her hair drenched in sweat, alone and terrified. Both scream as the lights dim and the sound of crying fills the air. The 2 women shared the same delivery room and gave birth at exactly 2:07 a.m. 2 baby girls. 2 cries. 2 fates. When So-hee saw Moran's husband walk in with expensive gifts and reporters waiting outside to congratulate the future heiress, envy burned in her chest. Hours later, So-hee lies awake, staring at the bassinets. She overhears nurses gossiping. That's the Yoon family's baby. She's going to inherit everything. Lucky child. So-hee looks at her baby, wrapped in a thin hospital sheet, then at Moran's baby beside her, dressed in silk and a gold pin. She looked at her tiny baby, wrapped in a thin hospital blanket, and tears filled her eyes. She whispers, "Why must fate be so cruel? My daughter deserves the world too." She waits till midnight. When the lights dimmed and the nurse on duty drifted to sleep, the world grew silent, and in that silence, she made a decision that would destroy 3 lives forever. She swaps the baby's name tags. Heart racing, hands shaking, and then she flees to her bed, crying silently. "My daughter will live the life she deserves," she whispered. "She will never suffer like I did." But she didn't know. A nurse named Park Eun-ji saw everything from behind the curtain. Fear grips her, terrified but loyal to the truth. She can't allow an innocent child's life to be stolen, she said. Before dawn, she switches the baby's back and keeps quiet. Later, she confides in a friend. "If I tell anyone, I'll lose my job. But if I stay silent, this lie will haunt us forever." The next morning, So-hee woke up, thinking her plan had worked. She smiled, holding the baby she thought belonged to Moran. But fate had already corrected her mistake. The morning after the birth, the hospital room was filled with the soft cries of newborns and the faint smell of disinfectant. Yoon Moran's husband, Kang Do-hyun, a tall, composed man with a kind face, walked into the room carrying flowers and a small gift box. He approached his wife's bed and smiled. "You did well, Moran. She's beautiful, just like you." Moran smiled weakly and turned her gaze toward Han So-hee, who lay quietly in the next bed, her face pale from exhaustion. Do-hyun noticed her condition and called a nurse. "She was in the same room with my wife all night. Please add her bill to ours. No mother should worry about money after giving birth." So-hee looked at him with disbelief and gratitude, tears filling her eyes. "Thank you, sir. I'll never forget this." Do-hyun simply nodded, unaware that the woman before him had almost stolen his daughter's life. As he prepared to leave with his wife and their baby, Nurse Park Eun-ji hurried toward him, glancing nervously around the hallway. Her hands trembled as she slipped a small folded letter into his palm. "Please, sir," she whispered, eyes darting to make sure no one was watching. "Read this when you get home. It's important. And please, don't tell anyone." Do-hyun frowned slightly, confused, but pocketed the letter. Outside, the wind blew softly as they drove home, a perfect day to begin a new chapter of life. Or so he thought. That night, after Moran fell asleep with their baby in her arms, Do-hyun finally opened the letter. The handwriting was shaky but desperate. "Sir, forgive me for writing this, but I must tell you the truth. Last night, one of the mothers in your wife's room attempted to switch the babies. I corrected the mistake before morning. Please, I beg you, do not speak of this. If anyone finds out, I'll lose my job and my license. I only wanted to do what was right. Nurse Park Eun-ji." Do-hyun sat frozen for minutes, the letter trembling in his hand. He looked at his wife sleeping peacefully, the baby's tiny fingers wrapped around hers. When she woke, he handed her the letter silently. Moran read it, her face turning pale. She looked up at him in shock. "Do-hyun, should we do something?" He sighed heavily and shook his head. "No, the babies are safe now. The nurse fixed it. There's no need to stir the past. Let's move on, for our child's sake. Emmeline nodded slowly, clutching the baby tighter to her chest. Outside, thunder rolled softly, as if fate itself disagreed with their decision. And so, they kept the secret buried. But as the years would show, some secrets never stay buried forever. 27 years later, Dr. Kang Ji-yoon, a brilliant young surgeon, stood on stage holding the Best Surgeon of Korea award for saving 20 accident victims. Beautiful, elegant, smart. The cameras flashed, and her smile lit the room. Reporters surround her. Dr. Kang, what's your secret to success? My mother's faith in me, she smiles. She taught me that love can heal anything. Across town, Han So-hee sits in her small apartment watching the broadcast. And when she saw Ji-yoon's face, her heart stopped. Her voice trembles. My daughter. My blood, she gasped. That's my child. I know it. I know her face. Her family looked at her in shock. Oma, stop it, said Minata, the daughter she raised. That's not your child. But So-hee wouldn't listen. She became obsessed. She went to the hospital where Ji-yoon worked, watched her from afar, cried silently. Every time Dr. Ji-yoon smiled, So-hee's heart broke a little more. So-hee storms into Yoon Emiran's company, now a respected businesswoman and philanthropist, accusing her of raising her daughter. She confronted Yoon Emiran and threw a picture of Ji-yoon on the table. You stole my child. I'm her real mother. So-hee shouted in public. Emiran, cold and elegant, stares her down. Are you insane? Get out before I call security. How dare you? The argument goes viral after someone records it. The media picks up the story. 2 women claim same daughter, shocking DNA test ordered. DNA tests were demanded. Reporters followed them everywhere. And then, the results came. Ji-yoon wasn't Emiran's biological daughter. She was Han So-hee's. So-hee screams and collapses in tears. I knew it. She's mine. She's my Ji-yoon. The truth destroyed both families. Emiran's real daughter, Minata, the girl So-hee raised in poverty, was the true heiress of the Kang family. But fate wasn't done yet. The truth spreads like wildfire. But Nurse-eun-ji, now an old woman, watches the news and trembles. She knows the real truth, that she had switched the babies back that night. So the girl So-hee raised, Minata, is her actual biological daughter. Nurse-eun-ji the visits So-hee, weak and crying. I was the nurse that night. I switched them back. Ji-yoon is not your daughter. The girl you raised, Minata, is. So-hee's world crashes. She remembers every slap, every insult, every moment she told Minata she was useless. She screams and falls to the ground. No, no, what have I done? She realized she had spent 27 years mistreating her own daughter and loving someone else's child from afar. Ji-yoon visits So-hee. So-hee kneels. I'm sorry, Ji-yoon. I stole your peace. I cursed you without even knowing. Ji-yoon, holding back tears, says, You didn't just steal a child. You lost one. You lost the one who called you mother. Meanwhile, Minata, her real daughter, watches from outside, crying silently. All I ever wanted was for you to love me, Oma. She runs away before So-hee can speak. So-hee falls sick from stress and guilt. She refuses food. She writes a letter every night to Minata but never sends it. Minata is nowhere to be found. Still, Ji-yoon couldn't shake the ache in her heart. She felt pity for her and started helping So-hee secretly, paying her hospital bills, sending food, making sure she was safe. Years passed. So-hee's health declined, and on her hospital bed, she wrote another letter. If only I had trusted destiny. I would have had everything I ever wanted. Love, peace, and my daughter's embrace. But I lost them all because I tried to change my fate. In the quiet of the hospital room, soft light streamed through the curtains. Ji-yoon sat by the bedside table when she noticed a small bundle of envelopes tied together with an old ribbon. Her hands trembled as she opened one. It was So-hee's handwriting. Letter after letter, words soaked in regret and love. They were all addressed to Minata. Tears filled Ji-yoon's eyes. She realized that, even in her final days, Han So-hee had never stopped thinking about the daughter she wronged. Determined to make things right, Ji-yoon searched for Minatar, and when she found her, she handed her the letters. These were written for you, from your mother. Minatara's eyes widened as she held the letters to her chest. She read every word, tears streaming down her face. Her heart broke as she realized the depth of her mother's pain and her love. That night, unable to hold back, Minatar traveled to Seoul Grace Hospital. She ran through the hallways until she reached her mother's room. So he lay weak on the bed, her breathing shallow but peaceful. When Minatar entered, she opened her eyes slowly. "My daughter," so he whispered, voice trembling. "Please forgive me. I know I have wronged you in ways I can never undo. But if there's even a tiny space left in your heart, let me find forgiveness there." Minatar took her mother's frail hand, tears falling freely. She smiled softly. "Om, I forgive you." Sohee's lips curved into the faintest smile, a peaceful one. Her eyes closed, still holding her daughter's hand. Outside the window, Minatar looked up at the sky. 2 stars crossed paths, shining brightly, like 2 souls finding each other again after being lost for too long. She whispered to the wind, "Om, I forgive you." Moments later, the door opened. Ji-yoon walked in with her family, her husband, her children, and Emma ran beside her. Sohee's eyes fluttered open for a moment. She looked at them, the 2 women whose lives had been intertwined by fate, and whispered weakly, "Please, forgive me, all of you." Ji-yoon stepped forward, placing a hand over hers. "You don't have to ask. You were already forgiven." Emiran nodded tearfully. "We all made mistakes, but love is what remains." Then Ji-yoon revealed softly, "Ma, I've been paying for your hospital bills. I didn't want you to suffer." Sohee's eyes filled with tears one last time, this time of peace. From that day, both families stayed connected, not by blood, but by forgiveness. They visited one another often, sharing meals, laughter, and stories of the past. Please like, comment, and subscribe.